What's up, everybody? My name is Juwan Rohan, and this is the Misguided Podcast, where we intend to guide you to a better future. I'm sitting here with Justin Cambra, real estate investor. How are you doing today?
Juwan, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, of course, man. So it is 7 p.m. right now for me. I normally do not record in the evenings. So this is like rare. This is a rare occasion right here.
Yeah, thanks for working with me. I know that you've got a lot of side hustles, and I've got a day job too, and then I do the real estate on the side. So thanks for
Yeah.
working it late in the day.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, of course, man. And thanks for giving me the time. So let's go ahead and get into your story. But before we do, just for the audience, how I found Justin was on Sean Penn's podcast, Everything REI. And Justin had a really cool story and seemed very personable. So I thought I'd bring him up here. And I hit him up and he hit me back and we got it scheduled. So let's go ahead and get into your story. Where are you from?
I'm from Seattle area, and I live up in Seattle right now. I've moved around after college, a couple of the areas, kind of in the Midwest, and then Bay Area for a bit, and then now I'm back up in Seattle.
When were you in the Bay?
So I was in the Bay, let's see, twice. And I use the Bay Area because people outside of California don't know the cities I'm going to mention. But originally I was in Stockton, California.
Oh yeah,
so that's like
that.
Yeah. So that's well, it's an all-American city if you don't know. But it's I was there from 2001 to 2002. Then I was there back in it's called Mountain House, which is by
They
Tracy.
really don't know that.
No one knows. Mountain House, it was created in like the real estate boom in the early 2000s.
Dude,
and so
speaking of that, I just found out about Mountain House maybe a month ago when I'm a realtor. So when I had a showing in Mountain House, and I'm like, hold on, do I even have access to this like super bucks? So I like Google where it's at. I'm like, oh my God. And then when you get there, it's like, yo, they really been like building these houses out here. Like it's little communities, and then you just have flat land, and then it's another community, and they're really nice houses for good pricing.
Right. So I was there. So I moved there, and it was like, I think it was 2008. So right in the crash.
Yeah.
And then I ended up leaving there after I graduated from Berkeley School Business in 2013. So I was there for about 5 years.
Wait, hold on. How old are you, if you don't mind asking?
I'm 42.
No way, man. I swear I thought you were in your 20s. Because when you started saying you lived in Stockton in 2001, I was like, Jesus, I was like in first grade.
I know. I got that like Asian blood. So I look young until I don't, I'll enjoy it while I last.
What the hell do you eat? You need to give me your diet information. You look good, man.
I eat anything that has gravy with it. So nice. I'm a gravy guy at heart.
Nice. Well, that's super cool to know you were in. Okay, first of all, just like to know you were in those two places before the major crash, but even Stockton. Let's talk about Stockton a little bit, because Stockton was voted one of the worst cities in the country, especially around 2001. So the fact that you were living out there, like, why? Did you have a job? What were you living? Yeah.
So I had just graduated in 2001 I had my undergraduate degrees in ag business from Washington State.
Okay.
And so my first job was working for Cargill in the animal nutrition division. So there was a feed mill on the south side of Stockton that I worked there for maybe about a year and a half.
Okay. So and then Stockton, like I said, one of the worst cities. And then recently kind of flipped around, and the reason why is because of Michael Tibbs, I believe, the mayor, the youngest mayor, black guy. He's about 28. He was the mayor last year. He kind of flipped the whole city around, and everyone loved him. And now the market there, the housing market specifically, is crazy, right? So I don't know what the market housing, like how much houses were in 2001, but right now they're going crazy. And it's kind of like the number one place I've been looking to invest. A lot of people are moving away now that they can work from home. As you know, Stockton, for those who don't know, is very far from the main city. So if you work in San Francisco, you're going to be in traffic for half the day. And so now a lot of people don't need to go to San Francisco, and Stockton has really big houses. So, and for cheap. So a lot of people are moving out there to Mountain House in places like those, just like where it's happening everywhere. But that's super interesting, man. That's crazy. That is
Yeah,
crazy.
Mountain House was like on the news when I moved there because it was the epitome of the real estate boom and bust. So
Mhm.
I bought my house there 2008.
Okay.
The previous owner had sold it was a bank owned property. So the previous person was foreclosed on. That guy had paid, I want to say it was like 600 something, 640 something like that. I bought it for 330,000. That's how much it dropped in the
Jesus.
financial crisis. And then it literally flatlined for about maybe till about 2012.
Mhm.
And then I ended up selling it in 2013 for, I think it was like 410, 430, somewhere in there. So it was like kind of flatlined for almost 4 years and then shot way up in value. Just so happened to coincide with the year that I left. So it worked out
When
perfect.
when did you leave? 2012 or no?
2013.
2013. Okay. Wow. And then where'd you go after that? After you left?
So after I graduated from Haas, I got my job at Amazon. I've been at Amazon now for 8 years.
Nice. And what do you do at Amazon?
So right now I'm in the real estate group at Amazon it's called Global Specialty Fulfillment. So it's the not your traditional where you're used to getting that brown box every day.
Mhm.
I do more of the specialty stuff. The main one that people would know about would be grocery delivery.
Okay. So what do you do specifically like for them though? What's your role?
So finding warehouses across the U.S. for the specific businesses.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah. And there's a lot of people right now that are like buying where like commercial buildings because the restaurants and everything went out and then flipping them into Amazon places or FedEx places. So are like how do you go about finding these places?
So in the for the Amazon world, there we have a broker network, and we're putting out feelers in the specific areas that we're going to. And then what I do is analyze from a business perspective which is the best one. So we're in a delivery business for the most part. So obviously we want to be closest to the customer at the lowest cost.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to figure out what that sweet spot is in terms of what's available, what's close to the customer, and what's going to make money.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, that's cool. So yeah, 9 to 5. Oh, I love to hear the people that come up on here that are still working a 9 to 5 and investing passively because um that is gonna reach, the average people, right? I mean, it takes a lot to go out there and just be a full entrepreneur. And not everyone has it in them. So I really like to have people who still work a 9 to 5 and can do it at the same time so that people know it's possible.
Oh yeah, man. It's like we just mentioned at 7 o'clock. So I've been working at the day job since
Exactly.
7. So 7 to 7, and
Yeah.
then the podcast, and then I still got more work tonight, and still, do the real estate stuff on the side. So keeping up with the bills and all that kind of stuff, and looking for new properties, closing on properties. So it's a constant juggle.
Well,
But
let's talk.
just
Let's dive
go ahead.
into that a little bit.
Mhm.
So like, uh, so keeping a 9 to 5 for as long as possible can be a good thing. But do you get to a point where you're kind of unhappy and you're just wanting to only do real estate? When do you make that jump?
So it's for me specifically, it was about 2 years ago where I was like, well, I got into real estate about 5 years ago,
Okay.
and then as I started buying more properties and seeing the passive income, I'm like, oh, I really like this, and then I'm like, my old job at Amazon, I was like, yeah, man, I really like this, but I'm like, if I really like real estate,
Mhm.
why don't I get a job at real estate in Amazon?
Yeah.
And so then it's about a year and a half ago, I got this role. And so like I'm doing real estate at Amazon and I'm doing real estate personally. So I'm kind of scratching that itch of real estate. But in terms of like, at what point do you want to go full time? The more that I build up on the side, the more that I want to, go full time. But we're in an economy right now where it's probably better to keep your day job,
Yeah.
continue to build the side hustle. Because
Uh-huh.
what I want to do is like a soft landing, ideally not even a landing, a takeoff, and be able to continue to grow my real estate business. So I'm trying to take all the money from Amazon, pump it into my side hustle, build that up so that I can, someday retire. Well,
Yeah.
retire meaning go full time into my own real estate.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, and I like the fact that, if you are working a 9 to 5 and you're investing in real estate and having this passive income, then you could just really scale your business a lot quicker, as opposed to, oh, okay, now I have, my goal was to get to replace my 9 to 5 income, right? So let's just say the average 3,000, I don't know,
Right.
3,000 a month. Now I have as many houses and I'm getting 3,000 in cash flow, so let me quit, right? But then now you're like, oh, I'm getting 3,000. Now how am I going to just keep on scaling? How am I going to get to 5
Right.
within a year? Like, so I really preach like keeping your 9 to 5 and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it accelerates everything. It can compress that timeline if you're truly focused on it and you have the burning desire,
yeah,
you can speed it up. It'll
yeah.
probably take me close to 7 years to do the full replacement.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. No, I like how you got that number in your head right there too. 7's a
Yeah.
lucky number too. You got this. You
Yeah.
got this. And you're still retiring early.
Yep.
So like that, you're retiring before what, the 64 or whatever is the retirement age. So that's good. Um, yeah. Well, that's cool. So how were you introduced to real estate?
So I got into real estate. I've bought houses before, as I was mentioning
Primary.
earlier, like a
Hmm.
mountain house and everything for primary. Then when I moved up to Seattle, I was renting and I've never done the downtown life. So I did the downtown life, downtown Seattle. And then I was like, well, all this money that I'm spending is going to rent. And I'm like, the compensation structure at Amazon and other large tech companies is that you get a base salary and then you get, whether it's stock options or restricted stock units, you get some sort of like supplemental income. So the way it works, the vesting period, which just means how long until you get it, for me was about 2 years from when I started it. And so like I knew I had all this money coming my way, like what I like to say is the tidal wave of cash flow coming my way from all this RSUs. And so I was like, this is my one shot, one opportunity to take that money, parlay it, be able to build a side hustle business within real estate.
Hmm.
And so that's what I ended up doing. I was like, the easiest way to get started is a house hack.
Yeah.
So back in it was August of 2016. So 5 years ago, this month is when I bought my first house hack and got into real estate. I just knew that I wanted real estate with the and one being I can rent out one of the units. So I was looking for duplexes or large houses that I could afford at the time. And I just so happened to get a duplex, but has land. So it's got the and one, if you will, or I'm going to develop the property at some point in the future. I'll tear down the duplex and I'll put, 12 plus units on it at some point.
How big's the land?
It's 2/3 of an acre.
Okay. Okay. And you had, how big's your property? Like what's the inside and yeah, what's the inside square
The
footage?
square footage of the property is 3,450,
Oh, that's
but
big.
but you can put like, townhomes on it. Get to
Yeah.
it like 12 townhomes. But I'm more of a long-term guy. So instead of, developing it and then selling it, I'd want to develop and rent it so that I
Yeah,
could
yeah.
just keep constant cash flow.
Yeah, yeah. You're a cash flow guy.
Right, exactly.
Nice, nice. Okay, so you get into real estate 5 years ago. So you buy this duplex, and then what happens? How do you get to the next one?
I still had the tidal wave coming my way, and I was like, now what else can I buy that makes money?
Yeah.
So one thing I didn't mention earlier, my first role at Amazon, and this is when I was getting my degree at Berkeley. It was an MBA, but I focused in finance. So when I came to Amazon, I was in the finance area. I first started in digital advertising finance, then moved into finance within the grocery business.
Okay.
So I was analyzing all the buildings in terms of net present value, which building is the best.
Yeah.
And so like I was learning how to analyze finances and cash flow. So after I bought that house hack, I was like, okay, let me see what's in Seattle area. And when I say Seattle, I'm talking like north and south about an hour. And there was nothing really that made sense to me from a cash flow perspective. So
Yeah.
then I looked on the east side of the mountains, and my brother lived in a city called Yakima, which would be like a Stockton to a San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I ended up buying an 11 unit property based on just financials. I was like, man, this makes total sense. Like, I put this much money in, I'm going to make this monthly cash flow. It's going to help build this money up so that I can, at some point leave Amazon.
Yeah. Okay, do you mind going into numbers on that 11 unit? Because a lot of people, they hear 11 unit and they're, oh, I need like $1 million to put down, or like, so can we go into numbers a little bit if you don't mind?
Sure. Yeah. On that specific, I've since sold it, but I still remember the numbers. So that's that specific property. I bought it. It was listed at 330,000
That is
in,
crazy. That sounds
but this
so
was
cheap.
2017.
That's still,
And
wow, that's
yeah,
crazy. Okay.
and it was 11 units, and most of the units were one bedrooms. I think there's one or two studios and like 2 bedroom.
Okay.
And the rents on it were in the call it like roughly 3,500 if I remember right.
Okay.
And so 330 was original list. After negotiating, we went under contract at 300. After appraisal, we ended up closing at 285.
Ooh,
So we ended up
Jesus.
working it to where the guy wanted to get out. Had been on the market for a while, and so in terms of a cash flow, I was like, man, this is great. And
Yeah,
so
that's huge. So like, okay, cash flow seems really good there, but how much is a mortgage on that place? Like, I'm sure, I don't know, this is just random. Getting a $15,000 mortgage every month, like how worried were you that you weren't going to be able to cover that?
see, that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur and still having your day job. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
at that point in time, so it's 285 and it's 20% down.
Uh-huh.
So what is that, like 57,000? And
Mhm.
so the balance of that, call it 230, was the mortgage,
Yep.
and it was a 25-year amortization, somewhere in the 5% range, I believe, at the time for interest.
Okay.
And so my month, this is all memory, so don't, so
Yeah, no, no, yeah.
there's gonna be an engineer out there and be like, oh no, his payment was like 1,250,
Uh-huh.
but I think it was around $1,250. And working at Amazon, like, and I was living cheap. Where at my prime, at house hack, I'm in a 1 bedroom apartment, and I rent out the bottom to cover the mortgage. So I have a lot of just Amazon regular money coming in to cover any sort of expenses that come up. So I was never worried about it. It didn't hit me until when my mortgages for all the properties started getting above my monthly Amazon take home.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
That's when I started being like, if something happened, i.e. COVID,
Yeah.
which that was like the trigger point. I was like, oh my, like we're getting into an area
We're getting
where
into risky.
big time. I
Yeah.
could feel it. I was like, oh man, what happens?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. Wow. So you said remind me of that mortgage again for the monthly. You said about 12.
I thought it was like $1,250.
That's like that's pretty good. That's good, man. That's good. And 5%, I feel like it's pretty good for a large complex like that. How
Back in those days, yeah. Nowadays
yeah.
you can get 3.5%
Uh-huh.
for same type of thing.
Well, right now, yeah, but probably not
Yeah,
in 2 years. But right
right.
now for sure. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's crazy. Okay, cool. Man, I love real estate. I love real estate. It gets me like so juiced.
Right.
Yeah. So on your journey, were there any books, podcasts, blogs, forums? I know back then blogs and forums were like, the thing, but anything getting you motivated and keeping you motivated? Any stuff you're learning from?
Yeah, there's two main avenues, maybe three. So there was the main website that I think everyone goes to, Bigger Pockets.
Mm-hmm.
So I found Bigger Pockets in around 2016, and so I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. So I was just downloaded the podcast, soaking up all the content I could. At that point in time, they were in the, I don't know, 200-ish area for podcasts, and I went back to one and then listened to everything all the way and caught back up. And then I started buying books, which everyone's probably read Rich Dad Poor Dad. If you haven't, you got to read it. which that's kind of the it uses a story to help you think about investing and getting into real estate investing. And then the third one, which was just talking to other people who are real estate investors. So I just found out about meetup.com, and so was found out that, oh man, there's a lot of other people that created these real estate meetups. So I started going to those and connecting with people. And then ultimately the experience comes from doing deals.
Mhm.
That's where you really understand and you really get the actual real estate acumen.
Yeah, I want to touch up on that third point you mentioned, because a lot of people think they can't surround themselves with real estate people or any business if they're not already doing it. And so
Hmm.
if they haven't already started investing, they're like, what are these people going to learn from me? You know? And
Right.
so I think kind of my point would be is you got to throw yourself out there, right? Because you can learn from them, and there can be stuff that you can provide for them, right? Whether it's other connections, connecting them to, your cousin who works with Chicago Title Company, right? Like
Hmm.
or just, hey, what can I do for you? How can, I help you so that I can learn from you, right? And I think it's important. A lot of people kind of stray away from that third step because they haven't started yet.
Everybody's got something, you know, if you got, there's time, there's money, there's connections like you talked about,
Yeah.
there's a deal, which is like the
Yeah.
easiest way to get a real estate investor involved is like bring a deal to
I
them.
got a nice
So
deal with the numbers, and then the all ears perk
exactly.
up. Like, yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. A hypothetical, no one really wants to spend time on that, but a real deal that you could both make money on, you'll get a lot of eyes and ears to help you out.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Yeah, no, great advice. Cool. I want to move on to the Hella Misguided segment where I ask the same question to each entrepreneur that comes up here. And that question is, if you were to write a letter to your 18-year-old self, what would a summary of that letter be? And I know this one has to be deep because you're 42. You've gone through the real estate ups and downs, man. So I want to hear
Right.
some deep right here. Let's go.
All right. You know what's funny is you'd asked me to be on this podcast, and so I was doing research and I watched quite a few of your episodes. So I was listening to your podcast this morning and I heard that question on it. So I've been thinking about it. And
Nice.
there's the two things that would be in this letter. Um, and both of them are something that I relatively just learned in the last couple years of my journey.
Okay.
The first one is nobody fucking cares. Like I used to think like everyone's like worried about, I'm thinking about what they're thinking about me.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care. It's like when you're at a golf driving range and you hit a bad shot and you think everyone's looking at me, I hit a bad shot.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about your golf swing.
Yeah.
So it's like, but it took me, almost 40 years old to really ingrain that in my
Mhm.
mind. Like nobody cares.
Yeah. That I think that's
It's
gonna
all up
be
to you.
the title of this episode is nobody fucking cares. I
Right.
love that.
Exactly.
That's right.
And then, which then you don't spend time thinking about what other people think about you. And
Mhm.
then you just focus on what you like and what you're good at. And that's where it takes off. And that's where I think my real estate journey went well. I was like, man, I really like this real estate. I don't care what anybody else thinks about me. I'm just gonna go do it, start doing these deals. And then before you know it, everyone's like, well, how did you do it? I'm like, oh, I just put my head
Just
down and I liked it. I was doing it. I didn't
yeah.
think about anything else.
Mhm. Okay.
So that's the first one. The other one is like, and I'm really, really into this since 2019. So I was in LA. I went date with, or not date with destiny, but unleash the power within at Tony Robbins, and really have been getting into like mindset and like just positive mindset around the stuff that I do.
Okay.
Stuff like recently, and I've just been testing this out. Like I'll be at playing outside of, I play sports, so I do hockey and I do soccer. So I was in had a soccer game. I was like telling myself, I'm going to score a goal, and just mentally everything going to the game, at the game, doing the stretches. The last 2 weeks I've scored a goal. I'm like, it's simple things like that. It's all
Yeah.
about the mindset. And
Yeah.
I really thought that was kind of like, hocus pocus, voodoo type stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the more that I'm getting into it, the bigger stuff I do, it's so true. It's like everyone's like, how did you do these deals? And I'm like, I know that these people want to do deal with me because I want to buy it. They want to sell it. I can create a deal that works for them. My mindset is saying I'm attracting these buyers.
Mhm.
And it's just like everybody, like I bought houses off Facebook and off Craigslist. Everybody has the same access. I'm
Yeah.
able to talk to them, get the deal done because I have this positive mindset. It's like I put it out there and it's coming back to me.
Yeah.
And so those two things are like, you know, take out all that negative wasted energy about what I used to think other people were thinking of me, and then put in their positive mindset,
Mhm.
and my everything is just taken off for me the last couple years. And I'm like, man, if I was 18, knew that same stuff, I mean, I would have been retired long time over. Like, geez, who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe a billionaire by now.
Yeah. No, I always say if I knew what I knew now, and I don't even know half the shit, probably but if I knew what I knew now, I'd be a billionaire, not millionaire,
Right.
billionaire, just because the work ethic alone. And like I just wish, like for me when I was 18, man, the only thing that mattered to me ever was basketball. Yeah, my life
Right.
was basketball. I had no idea about money. I had nothing. I was getting an Arizona iced tea for 59 cents at the liquor store and a bag of chips, and then would go play 8 basketball games. Like that's it. So if like I said, I just wish there was some stuff I knew, right? I wish
Right.
someone, a mentor, would have guided me in the right direction, which is the whole reason I started this podcast. And so, no, I appreciate you being honest and open about that. So thank you. I want to dive into what everyone's talking about, the tiny homes. So
Right.
can you explain how you got started in that journey? I see you post numbers on Instagram pretty much every day about that. So let's kind of get into some numbers too.
Awesome. So I post on, I'm trying to get my story out there, and help other people. You're talking about,
Get
newbies.
TikTok. Get TikTok.
Oh, I need to get in it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
got a one of Sean Pan's buddy that connected us, got me in, looking into TikTok, but I haven't created an account and put any content out there yet. But
You got to do it.
um, these tiny homes were totally like a spur of the moment kind of thing. Like I never was like, I'm gonna go buy tiny homes.
Well, that wasn't a thing until like
Yeah,
recently. So you couldn't
exactly.
have. Yeah.
Probably like 5-10 years ago, you said tiny home. They're like, oh, you own a mobile home?
Mobile home. Yeah.
Right. Tiny home, mobile home, two totally different things. But what ended up happening is like, go back to that tidal wave. Like, how do I make money to be able to retire? I had bought the property at my house hack. I had bought the Yakima property. It was 11 unit. I started buying properties in the Midwest to increase the cash flow. But I'm always like looking. So instead of watching TV, I'm usually watching YouTube and learning. And sometimes I'll just be watching YouTube and then scrolling through Craigslist. And I'm just seeing what is for sale by owner. And I just so happened it was Christmas Eve. I remember it. I was sitting there late at night on Christmas Eve looking at Craigslist ad and ended up getting 2 deals from that one night.
Jesus.
One was these tiny homes and in Seattle area, and the other one was a Milwaukee fourplex, both from that same night around midnight on Christmas Eve. 18 it was, and so I was like, I had nothing. I was like, these tiny homes, like, what is it? So then I was looking at it. The person was already doing Airbnbs with it, and he had actually built them.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, I went back to my finance mindset, that I learned at Amazon. I was like, well, what makes sense? How much do I put in and how much do I get out of it?
Yeah.
So then I started like doing some research on it. And then I just literally went to Airbnb and I was like, how do I find if there's tiny homes on Airbnb? And there's this like little filter that gives like these specialty. So I ended up finding these tiny homes. I'm like, wow, these things actually rent for quite a bit. And then
Yeah.
I was looking like how often do they rent? And I'm like, man, they actually book up quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
So then I had reached out to some of those Airbnb people to talk to them about, tiny homes and Airbnb. And I went, oh my God, these could kill
Yeah.
in Seattle. Cause there's like, generally speaking, there's not that many tiny homes in Seattle. So I was
Mhm.
like, I was talking to one other guy. He was making like $5,000-6,000 a month per tiny home gross. I'm like, this is a no brainer. Like if they could make 5,000 a month. So I was like, back to, I was saying I had 2/3 of an acre. I was like, I'll just put these on my property.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to figure out how to do it. And so after running the numbers, what's the top line revenue potential? I just did a swag on the cost to set them up. And then I knew the purchase price of the property. And then I was just calculating what's my cash on cash return going to be. The cash on cash is just saying, how much do I put in for how much do I get out? So if I put $1,000 in and for initial investment and I get $100 back at, say, at the end of the year, that's a 10% cash on cash. And so like, as I was doing this, I'm like, this cash on cash return would be so much better than anything else that I got. Let's try it out. And the purchase price was actually $50,000 per tiny home. So $150,000 total. And I was like, okay, it wasn't like $1 million. So it wasn't like a too big of a number to where it was going to be too risky for me. It was small enough to where it was bite size, but big enough to where I could put capital to play and make it worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how do you go about, so you start, you do all the research, right? Numbers and everything, which you're supposed to, but the logistics of putting a tiny home, right, on a land, how is that? Because, some states might not allow it. California is very strict on stuff like that. So Seattle, how do they feel about you just putting a little tiny home on your property? Is that cool?
Yeah, that's the issue. I mean, today you can do it. There's been a law passed to where you can actually do it.
Okay.
But before it was such a gray area. It's not a house and it's not a
Not a,
vehicle
uh-huh.
because it's actually a house on a trailer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can move this around.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was in hindsight, I jumped in, I did a cursory check. I just assumed if other people had it, I could do it. Come to find out, not so easy. And so I ended up leaving them. They're in a mobile home park. I ended up leaving them there and kind of just, getting by. And it was making no money at the
Uh-huh.
beginning.
Because they're in a
And
mobile home park?
they're in a mobile home park, and I was just trying to learn how to do Airbnb at the same
Yeah.
time
Okay.
and get a cleaner to show up.
Yep.
And at the same time, I was like trying to move them to my property, try to get like solidify the costing. You know, making a long story short is like huge cost to get them set up, like close to $100,000 to put them on my
Jeez.
property because my property is 2/3 an acre, but it's super long but narrow. So to snake the water or the sewer, and electric all the way to the back of the property was going to be massive, like a lot of money. And I'd already put all my money
Yeah.
into those tiny homes, and so I was like, I need to figure it out. And so I ended up connecting with the Washington Tiny Homes Association president, and then working with him to I moved him to another mobile home park, and I only had one live because they only had
Yeah.
one
One
spot open.
space.
Yeah, so
Oh,
here
okay.
I am just hemorrhaging cash because only one of them's actually alive, and then get a second one live at that same place, and then um, the guy ended up buying a property and putting pads and everything on that property. So I've now been able to move all three of them. Actually, last month I moved the third one.
Okay.
So I bought these in 2019. It took me over 2 years to move them from the original spot to another mobile home park, now to where they're at today.
You're playing
So on
Monopoly over
paper,
here.
everyone's, oh yeah. Uh, I post things showing how much money they make. So I had a profit,
Mhm.
my best month ever last
Yeah.
month. So I was roughly a little over 6,000 gross, 4,000 net ballpark.
Mm.
And everyone's like, "Oh my god, it makes so much money." I'm like, what you don't see, it's like the tip of the iceberg. I'd been hemorrhaging money, for the first year and a half of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking at your stuff right now on Instagram. So I'll just throw out some numbers for the guests if that's cool. Um,
Yeah.
so you have three tiny homes as discussed. In the month of July, you've had 21 bookings, occupancy of 88%, revenue 6,833, expenses 2525, and your net payout 4,308. So that is amazing, man. Do you have photos of kind of your lot, or what lot are they on now? They're on your friend's lot, or the mobile home lot?
I have zero at the mobile home lot. They've all been moved to. They're actually at Seattle Tiny Homes, is a company that builds tiny homes, and the owner Todd McKellips, he's got a lot there that I have my tiny home. So I pay him monthly lot rent,
How much
and
is that?
the 3 year live right now, $600
Okay.
Per tiny home. That's, if you went back, you said 25.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the expenses. The lot rent, the utilities, all that goes into the
So
cleaning fees
utilities
is
are
usually
very cheap, it seems.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a tiny home. It's not like a big house, right?
Uh-huh.
And a lot of people that are there for vacation.
Yeah.
They're going to the mountains to hike, to ski, or whatever, or going to downtown. So they're not consuming a lot of utilities either.
Yeah. What's the name of the place you said? Washington Tiny Homes? I can't find it. There's a lot that popped up. It's like,
Oh, yeah. Seattle Tiny Homes is his company. He's
Seattle.
building me
I
a
see
tiny
it.
home right now. It's going to be live in September. So I'll
Oh,
have 4 live, and the new one should be, I think is going to do even better because it's brand new. The
ooh.
other ones are 3 to 5 years old,
Yeah.
and so this one's going to be more. It's called Breakfast at Tiffany. My girlfriend's doing all the interior design type stuff on it, so it's more female centric. The other 3 are more farmhouse. One's kind of a Euro cabin look to it. And one's like a fisherman's lodge.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I found it. So when you go through him, because I'm super interested, so I like
Mm-hmm.
would be super interested in something like this. When you go through him and you buy a tiny home, does he offer his lot to you? When does he run out? Like, how does what happens if he doesn't have a lot to give you? Where do you park this thing?
Well, that's the thing is like if you're going to do, if I was starting from scratch today,
Mhm.
like I would have to find a spot to put it. So either I got to go find a spot and rent it, go buy my own spot that's got hookups, or buy land and get it developed for the hookups. When I mean hookups, I'm talking about water, sewer, electric, that kind of
Mhm.
stuff.
Yep. Yep. So I wonder if it would have been better if you didn't have the long, narrow street that you were talking about where your house is on, and it was more of like a normal lot, I guess, if you could still add those, if it wouldn't have been almost 100K, like maybe like 50, 30 or something. I don't know. But I wonder
Oh
if,
man, right.
you
If I
know,
had one of the, there's lots that if you're in the city, you have the front of the house is facing the street, but then in the back, there's usually like an alley or maybe even the other side of the street. So if I would have had something like that, that'd have been perfect
yeah.
where I could tap into something much closer. But my property is kind of like a ski slope. It kind of goes up and then up.
Mm,
And so like its distance is away, but then it's uphill.
yeah.
It's a good 75 to 100 feet vertical climb from the main street level.
Got you. Okay, cool, cool. One more question about tiny homes. Do you need like an address on there? Because I know to post on Airbnb you need an address. So do these have an address, and can they just move? Like, do you have to fill out paperwork to change the street address every time? How does that work?
Yeah, so that's the thing is like, oh, I was like, well, I can just move my Airbnb listing over, but you can't. Like Airbnb only lets you have the address. Normally that's not a problem, right?
Yeah.
You're not moving a house, but these are actually on a trailer. I can move them. But we ended up creating brand new Airbnb listings in the new spot. And so we had to restart with all of your reviews. And once we got enough reviews, then it starts helping it get more
Go to time.
discoverability within the Airbnb app.
But okay, now besides Airbnb, when you move it somewhere else, do you have to let Washington State know or something? Like the city, like you don't have to let nobody know this thing is just floating like a car almost?
It legitimately is a car. It has tabs on it
Oh, really?
because it's on a trailer. So you have to have
Uh,
tabs on it, in
yeah.
order to move it.
Oh, so
So
you have to pay not car insurance, but do you have to pay what
I have
insurance?
I do have insurance on it. I have it's kind of like a specialty Airbnb insurance, and then I have an overlay of umbrella insurance on top of it.
Okay. Where do you get umbrella insurance? I've heard of that one time on this podcast. Someone talked about it, but where do you get it from?
It's right here. I have an invoice for it. It's
I got some bills due.
so it's right here.
Oh, nice.
It's personalumbrella.com. Very catchy. But I was using Progressive. It was no Geico. I was using them before.
Okay.
There's
And
tons of companies that have umbrella policies out there.
can you just give a short definition of umbrella insurance?
Right. So usually when you're investing in real estate, you have property insurance. And so that's if something happens to the property. Now, me personally, and now I'm getting this set up for my business as well. I'm looking for additional insurance on top of that. So if somebody's walking on the sidewalk and they trip and get hurt and they, come after me, then I have this umbrella policy, covering me if there's anything else they're going to come towards me. So I'm just trying to like protect against catastrophic events. Yeah, I've built this up over 5 years. I don't want to lose it on like
One
one
trip.
accident.
And the crazy
Right.
thing is it's super cheap too. It's from what I've heard. It's not as expensive, right? Probably not cheap, but it's not as expensive. Correct?
Well, I can tell you right here. It is like I do $2 million is $488
480, but
per year.
for all of them though.
No, that's just the umbrella policy. So for the actual tiny homes insurance, that's actually super expensive. Anything that you Airbnb, there's only a select few companies that do Airbnb insurance. And so that one I'm probably paying, this is a swag, I'm going off memory. It's probably close to 2,000 for all three. So 700-800 per tiny home.
Where do you get
somewhere in there?
Where you have to have specific Airbnb insurance for tiny homes? Where do you even find that? I wouldn't trust to type that into Google.
But there's only like 3 or 4 companies that do it. I can't tell. So I got all the bills are just came in. I can't tell if this is it, but maybe it's American Modern. But there's the main one that you had heard, which I was using before, was Lloyd's of London. Lloyd's of London has a Airbnb insurance. But previously when I had an Airbnb, I was with, I can't remember who it was. It was like State Farm or something like that. And I was like, hey, just letting you know that I've got this Airbnb and I want to make sure it's covered. And then they sent me a note back, just letting you know that we're canceling your insurance. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. Damn. So all overnight, I was like, I got to find somebody that's going to give me this insurance. And so I ended up going with that Lloyd's of London short term. But that one was like, for the 3 tiny homes and my primary residence, it was like $5,000 a year. And so then I ended up switching away from the Lloyd's of London one to, I think it's this American Modern, which is much, much cheaper.
That's good. Okay, cool. I'm looking that up. American Modern. Cool.
But the key here is like you've got to get in the game, and then as things come up, you've got to course correct. So like the tiny homes, I'm moving them to different places, and then I have high insurance and I got to find another insurance carrier. Then I need to find a cheaper one.
Yeah.
So like, it looks like I have my act together, but it's from me fumbling through all this stuff in the background to get to the Instagram post that shows I made 6,800 and net of it was like 43 or whatever. It looks amazing. Like I'm like an expert, but that's just a series of errors that I've made and small bets and risks that I've took to get to this point.
And you have to go through those, like, you have to walk through that. You can't just hear it from Justin and say, okay, now I can, avoid this. Like, yeah, you can take steps, right? Like you may be able to, okay, now I'm going to go with American Modern insurance, right? But now maybe to me that 2,000 is too expensive. Maybe I want something that's 1,000, or maybe they send me a letter saying, hey, you got denied. Now I got to go look somewhere else, right? So you have to walk through it yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, I love tiny homes now. I definitely want to get into that and do more research. So real estate, are you invested in anything else besides real estate? What about the stock market?
Because I work at Amazon, I get restricted stock units. I only own one stock. It's Amazon. Outside of that, I don't own any in the market.
Do you get a huge discount on their stock?
No.
Oh, damn.
It's
Really?
part of my compensation. So
Yeah.
every
Okay.
year you get stock today that is what's called a restricted stock unit that will vest, i.e. you get the actual ownership of it 2 years from now. So there's always a more carrots out there, meaning more stocks in front of you to continue to work.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. 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 That makes sense.
So
Um,
outside of that, the only other thing is gold and silver. So I have a little bit of gold, I think 9 ounces of gold and somewhere like 3,000 ounces of silver, something like that.
nice. 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 Okay. Cool. So let's see. Let's see. We're gonna wrap up pretty soon, but I want to ask a few questions on how you feel about partnerships. A
Hmm.
lot of people are like, I don't have enough money to start just by myself, or it's a lot of work, or I just, I need help. Can someone hold my hand through the process? How do you feel about people who work with partnerships? Because I ask this question sometimes to people who only do partnerships, right? Or
Hmm.
who don't ever do partnerships. And I love to hear, both sides.
So I've been in 3 camps. First camp is no, second camp is yes, and then third camp is it depends. So I'm in the third camp right now. It depends. So when I started my journey, I was like, it's so much easier to go fast on your own. What's that saying? If you go on your own, you go fast, but if you go with other people,
You
I,
go
I
further.
forget
You
the
go further.
go
So
further.
I love
Yeah,
it. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. And so then I was like, hey, why don't, instead of me buying a bunch of these small deals, if I have some partners, I can do some bigger deals. So I ended up doing 4 partnerships in about a 12 to 18-month span. And then I was like, oh, this is a lot of work. I'm obviously well vested in real estate, but they're not. So like getting it all set up and like educating and the accounts and the accounting and the taxes, and I'm like, whew, this is a lot of work. And so I'm now back into, I'll do it if it makes sense. And what I'm doing now is actually, instead of equity partners, I'm doing debt partners. So I just bought a deal in July and back in another in Yakima, a 6-unit property, and I'm borrowing money from a guy, paying him 1.10% to borrow short-term money to
Okay.
help me acquire it. And so that's a debt partnership. I'll
So
do that all
it's
day
like
long.
private money.
Exactly. It's a
Mhm.
personal loan.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's backed up by the asset. So they have a lien against the property so that they're covered.
How how do you run that lien? Do you do that through the real estate agent where that you put them on the title, or how do you put the lien on the property? So for people who don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, so I didn't know either until May, June. So like what I do, this is a deal that I got for the Craigslist. And so
That's
as
crazy.
I'm talking to the seller, I was able to negotiate seller financing. And then I I know how to do the deal. I know it makes sense financially. And then I'm like, now I just need to go about getting it set up. So then I was like, oh, well, we'll just go to a title company and they'll do it. So I sent it to the title company. I was like, here's what we agreed upon. Set this up. And they're like, well, you need, what do they call it? A note and a deed of trust, I believe it was. And I'm like, what's a note and what's a deed of trust? And so then I'm like Googling it and I found out what it is. So I just hand wrote this note, which is just like agreement to pay between me and the lender. And then the deed of trust, I just Googled it. There's a state form, filled it out, got it notarized, had the lender fill it out. We sent those documents to the title company and they recorded it.
Nice. And then once they record it, that means he has the lien and he's transferred the uh god damn it. His
The
name.
funds.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so yeah, it's cool. It's cool because I like, as a realtor, I see like, I hear about all this stuff, the title companies, the deed of trust. And then as a notary, I actually see it happening. I have to go notarize the document. So it's like super cool. And I'm
Right.
like today I did three deeds. I did 3 deeds. I had 4 jobs. I'm looking at my calendar. I have 4 jobs and I did 3 deeds. And it was like 2 quick claim deeds, which is the easiest thing. It's more for like family members or friends. Say if you buy, for those who don't know, if you buy like a property with a partner, the easiest deed where you can like give that partner equity is a quick claim deed. Those usually are the smoothest, and yeah. So but yeah, so it's cool to see both sides, you know.
Right.
Yep. Cool. Well, man, I appreciate you coming up here. We're gonna end up wrapping up. We are about 10 minutes over. So the way I like to wrap up the episode, I know you know because you listen, but it's with a segment called Guided Conclusions, where I ask you a question. It could be funny, serious. I can make you cry. I'm just playing. But today's question is funny. Would you rather, for the rest of your life, have no AC or never use deodorant?
No AC or never use deodorant. I would probably go with no AC because I pretty much that's how I've been living my entire life. The
Yes.
deodorant, you know, for that's not necessarily for me, but for others around me.
Yeah, true. Man, Stockton. I'm trying to think of like you living in Stockton with no AC. It's so humid out there, especially now with weather. Obviously, climate change is way worse than it was in 2001, but it's hot.
That was the only time I actually had air conditioning. I mean, I bought like a portable one this last summer, but we
Yeah.
only turn it on for like the 3 days it's hot in Seattle. But
Yeah.
yeah, it used to get well over 100 over in Mountain House all the time.
Yeah.
So you got it. Yeah, over there you had to have the AC.
Yeah, in Stockton. Stockton's humid. You got cockroaches. Stockton has the cockroaches come out because of the humid. But yeah, okay, cool. That's cool. I know you're looking probably obviously into investing. I work with Fly Home, so we are actually out of Seattle. If you've heard of us, the brokerage, I'm sure you'll probably see like billboards and stuff now. But
Right.
and a couple cool things with us is we offer the all cash stuff. So that would be cool to look into for you, you know. But it's they haven't really opened like a segment to investors. Like they haven't really dug into investors. I've actually had investors come up here and use them, but I feel like Fly Homes is more for like the first time home buyers and stuff like that. But they are definitely, you know, broadening their section and kind of getting to everyone. And it's so cool to see them grow. But yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard of them, but I haven't researched enough to use their services yet, though.
Yeah. There's three main programs that a lot of people come to us for is the all cash. We buy the house all cash. You do a short-term loan with us and then boom, transfer it over. Another one is the trade up program. If you have a house and you're looking to move into the next one, you can do all that before you sell that current house that you're living into. And then the other one is a guaranteed sale. So if your house doesn't sell within 90 days, boom, we buy it from you. So a lot of people love
Oh,
us.
nice.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I appreciate you coming up here, Justin. I know you got to get home and do some stuff, or you are home, but so go ahead and drop your social media and where can people reach you?
Yeah, predominantly I'm on JC Cambra on Instagram, and then on Facebook it's just Justin Cambra.
Nice. Well, do you have any last words to say for the audience?
I go back to what that letter to myself. No one cares, like, and then just focus on yourself and your mindset. Get into the game, and then positive things are going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Of course. And I'm auto correct. No one fucking cares.
Right, exactly.
Thank you, Justin.